Good morning and welcome to The Skinny for Friday, June 13th. I'm Mitch Perry, the senior political reporter for the Florida Phoenix, joined by my colleague Ray Roa, editor-in-chief of Creative Loafing newspaper. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Mitch. Happy to be here with you. It's awesome to see you. And thanks again to the listeners for helping us.
Yeah, we
goal.
can never thank the listeners enough. Again, a couple weeks ago was our fundraising drive, and we made our goal. That was great. Happy Friday the 13th to everybody out there. So today, later in the show, coming up, we're going to get into immigration, which, of course, is... it's always been a big topic, but it's so huge right now. Forget about what's going on in Los Angeles. There have been big raids and detentions or, ICE raids here in Florida. And we're going to talk about it. And we really want to have our listeners participate in the conversation. We're going to have folks who support what's going on and folks who are really much against it. This is on the eve, of course, of these protests that are going to be happening across the country tomorrow. We can talk a little bit about that later on. But first, before we get into that, I want to talk about what happened, Ray. Actually, I was in a courtroom reporting. I wasn't in trouble at all. Reporting this week on a federal lawsuit that was filed by the ACLU of Florida and another group, the Civil Rights and Racial Justice Clinic out of New York University, on behalf of 3 residents of St. Pete and Tampa. And this is regarding, the charges that there was illegal racial gerrymandering of a Tampa Bay area state Senate seat. That state Senate seat is District 16. It's controlled by or held by State Senator Darrell Rouson from St. Petersburg. And it's one where it crosses the Bay, right? And actually, so is our congressional seat, actually. Kathy Castor's seat from the last congressional redistricting crosses the Bay from Hillsborough into part of Pinellas County. But this is controversial, and the folks from the ACLU say that it was illegal, basically. And so that's what this trial was all about. It was over the course of 4 days, began Monday morning. Anyway, there's 3 plaintiffs, and we have one of them in studio. It's Jarvis El-Amin, our friend here, who's been a long time, well, since I've lived in Tampa, and I did live in Tampa, now I live in St. Pete. But anyway, for over 25 years, since I've been here, I've known Jarvis. Jarvis, good morning.
Good morning, Mitch. So glad to be here. Glad to see you again, too.
Yeah, it's great to see you here. You're looking great, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. So you were one of the 3 plaintiffs. I originally wrote 5, and I guess a couple of people are no longer plaintiffs, but they still were witnesses in the case here. How did you get involved in this lawsuit?
Well, first of all, I always know that was wrong. It was wrong back in the 90s when Arthenia Jonah had the seat. And
right.
So, you can't, the one senator don't have the bandwidth to service both sides of the Bay. I always considered that being wrong.
Right.
And so I got involved when I heard about they was doing something, this ACLU. I know one of the attorneys that we worked together, James Shaw. We worked together with Black and White Black.
Oh, James Shaw, sure, yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I know it. He mentioned it to me, and I thought it was a great opportunity, and I live in the district.
Right. And so you testified. In fact, I think you were the first witness on Monday morning.
Yes, I kicked it off.
Yeah. You were actually the shortest one. I mean, everybody else went a little bit longer there. And so, again, to tell our listeners, so let me just go over this. So, yeah, it's about the legislature's 2022 plan. And part of this is, of course, to connect black populations from parts of Hillsborough and Pinellas County, which they packed into Senate District 16. Now, the charges that violated the equal protection rights, the ACLU contends, by unjustifiably packing black voters into District 16 and removing them from nearby District 18, reducing their influence there. The defendants are State Senate President Ben Albert and Florida Secretary of State Cord Byrd. Now, originally, this lawsuit included District 18, which is the Senate seat in Pinellas that Nick DeSegli is the state senator for there. So that was kind of interesting how that's no longer part of this lawsuit, but District 16, how that was, drawn up, as it were. So it was thrown of a 3-judge panel. We should say this. So District 16 includes parts of South St. Pete, then it goes across Tampa Bay to encompass a large portion of Hillsborough, begins at the southernmost part just above Manatee County and spreads north, capturing up at USF and North Tampa, ending at I-75 to the east. So tell me, I guess, basically, and this is what you were asked to testify about, how you are as a voter, as a black voter in Hillsborough County, are being wronged, essentially. What's the deal here, Jarvis?
Well, it's gerrymandering at its best, packing, and we're diluting the power. And the truth of the matter, anybody being misrepresented, because one senator, whoever get elected, don't have the access to and the bandwidth to represent both sides of the bay. And any classification, racial classification of the district is just simply wrong. I mean, you can see this. And no other reason they could, if not race, why didn't it pack the South St. Pete in District 18 a little higher up?
Right.
So it's you can see it's piking and it's racial gerrymandering.
Yeah. It is. This thing. And how long did you stay? Were you there beyond Monday, or did you stay past that to see?
No, I stayed there Monday because I had some previous commitment and I couldn't be there.
Yeah. Again, we're talking to Jarvis Al-Amin. He was a plaintiff in the lawsuit that was taking place this week in federal court in Tampa by the ACLU of Florida and another civil rights group suing the state of Florida Senate President Ben Alberton's position, not so much Alberton personally, and the Secretary of State's office. And it is interesting. There was, and this, of course, comes after what happened in 2010 or 2010 reapportionment, because you might recall. That was the same year we passed the Fair Districts Amendment.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, which includes to try to say gerrymandering is illegal, which is supposed to be illegal anyway. But,
exactly.
But put it in the Constitution that you can't do it. You have to draw the lines compactly, and you have to make sure that you don't do it for political, giving an advantage to an incumbent or to any party, as it were. Now, the fascinating thing about this case, though, was that. And so anyway, so let's go back to that to a moment. So we had the Fair District Amendments, and so groups sued, voting rights groups, and the Florida Supreme Court, which we should note was more liberal then than it is today, found that those maps were drawn illegally. There was a lot of chicanery involved with that, and just said we're going to rewrite the maps over, and that changed in 2015. And what we saw there, Ray, for example, is. Interestingly, that's where they changed the congressional lines too. So the District 13, Pinellas County, which had been in Republican hands for decades with C.W. Bill Young and then David Jolly for a couple of years, when it was redrawn in 2015, that made it more favorable for a Democrat at that time, which is why Charlie Crist ran for Congress in 2016. He beat David Jolly that year. He stayed in Congress for 6 years. Then we had a redistricting a couple years ago for the 2020 census. And in fact, one of the original maps did not really change 13 too much. And then Ron DeSantis got involved directly, which was unprecedented. And yet they did change that and basically made it so the CD 13 seat for Anna Paulina Luna, who's the incumbent there, made it much more favorable for Republicans.
That's right.
And she's won it hasn't been close the last two elections.
She won handily.
Right. And so Kathy Castor's district, what they did is what they've done basically with Senate District 16, where they've taken part of Castor's district in Hillsborough and crossed across the bay, and that is legal to do. Water counts. I learned so much, by the way, about how you draw the lines up and the strictures that you're under, and they have these expert witnesses, professors who came in from all across the country to discuss this. And some of it was, as a reporter, is very challenging because then again, by the way, you can't bring a computer in the courtroom, and so I have to scribble notes down, and so I don't usually do that. So I always, if you always say if you're in doubt, don't write it, right? Leave it out. So a lot of this was very. I don't want to say complicated, but it's a science definitely to do this, to draw congressional lines, to draw legislative lines. So that's what resulted here. Now, but like you said, so CD 13 and the congressional seat has gone back and forth. But as you said, Jarvis, this has been since 1992. We've actually had a Pinellas Tampa State Senate seat. Yeah.
See, the problem with that, Mitch, is that issues are clearly different. South St. Petersburg dealing with the Rays Stadium, dealing with the Gaslight District that used to be a historical black neighborhood. The Rays first went there. They promised that they were going to do so much in that area. Then the new mayor, which happened to be a brother, Ken Welch, he planned to do it. Then Hurricane Milton come, knocked their 10 off of it. Now you're still struggling. That's not a major issue in East Tampa, in the urban core in Tampa. What's the major issue here? Housing is a major issue with gentrification. Well, that's the major. Abandoned cemeteries. That's a major issue here, right at Roberts Park, 5 minutes away from here. Used to be a cemetery, one of the most historic, Zion Cemetery. So the issues are different, and you're not going to have one representative that's going to be well-versed on both issues. So we really want the seat to have one senator. Give me a whole senator.
Right. Now, have you had a chance to meet with Senator Rouson when he's come over here? Because I know he does have offices in Hillsborough County.
But let me clear that up. He don't have offices here, not clearly. He have a spot where he can just meet you at the coffee club. Cuban Club,
yeah.
Or he can meet you down to the tax collector's office in Brandon. So he don't have a physical office that you can walk in, talk to a secretary, talk to an administrative assistant.
If you're sending mail to him, it's going over to Pinellas.
It's going to Pinellas. If you want to see him person to person, his legislative aide and his staff is in Pinellas. As a matter of fact, Ella Coffey, I know her. She actually lives in Tampa, but she works in St. Pete. I haven't had a chance to talk to him about it, but if you read that story that the Weekly Challenger, the black newspaper in St. Pete did about it, they laid it out.
Okay.
And they got a statement for him. He was all right with what we're doing.
Yeah, very interesting. And as you mentioned, Arthenia Joyner, who used to hold the seat, now she was in Tampa. And I think maybe some of the residents in St. Petersburg might have had the same issues in terms of access potentially there. And this seat, by the way, actually at one point, this is crazy. It actually was both not only in Hillsborough and Pinellas, but also Manatee and even Sarasota.
Yes.
That's nuts. I mean, any representative to go try to represent all those constituencies is I mean, I guess they get stipends for their travel, to go to meet.
Well, I tell you something, brother. It's still part of it, still in Manatee County, because you hear Senator Rouson say, I'm the only senator that got 3 counties to represent. See, the challenge with this is, take for the Martin Luther King breakfast.
Yeah, Martin Luther King Jr.,
that's a big breakfast.
Right.
Tampa do a big one, 1,900 people. So we had to go back and forth.
Right.
National. So the one doing St. Pete, they do a big one same time. So here.
I think Yvette Lewis from the NAACP here in Hillsborough County, she testified that what she believes is that he trades off. 1 year he's in St. Pete, 1 year he's in Tampa.
And that's what happened. But let me be honest about it. When Arthenia was here, Arthenia lived in the community. Arthenia was all the community events, but she rarely went to St. Pete. She didn't have an office in St. Pete. Didn't have no representation in St. Pete. And so this lawsuit, while I'm so passionate about it, it's going to allow, if we prevail, you have a whole senator.
Right.
And then the chance of opportunity, if District 18 is ready for African-American representative, it could happen, but they have to get a lot of white votes and other ethnic groups votes. But it's a chance.
Yeah, that's the remedy, right? So this is a 3-judge panel, and they're going to now review this. They probably take maybe couple of months here before they
September,
come out.
October.
Okay, yeah, is that what you've heard? Yeah, they'll come out with a verdict on this, right? And if they do support, well, I think first off, if they support the plaintiffs, of course, the governor's office, the state will probably appeal that. So we'll see, because we do have an election coming up in a little over a year here. But that's the goal, right? To have it so that you could have like 2026 in the fall of 26. Vote and have a Hillsborough-only district for us to vote for state senate.
That's the goal. That's our prayer.
Jarvis, let me ask you, because you are in the barbershops. We'll talk about that another time. But you have deep conversations with people. Gerrymandering is something that feels like a tale as old as time. How much does this so-called gerrymandered district affects people's enthusiasm for even coming out to vote? And if this lawsuit does go your way, how do those conversations change? Do you think more people will vote?
Well, brother, you asked an empowering question. At the Cafe Con, I had an empowered meeting with them about barbershop conversation. They asked good questions just like you did. I'll tell you something. It would be more exciting to get people to be involved in this election and more elections, because now it's more at home. It feels like you can be affected by it. And so where it is now, even though Rouson a good guy, but it seems like a foreigner when he come here. People don't, because you just don't know the issues here and can't champion the issues. I mean, Arthenia, when she was here, she could champion the issues that she knew about. With her civil rights history, everybody knew her. So it's going to be different. But I can tell you this last round of election, you're going to have more involvement from black men. You're going to have more involvement from the black community when it comes to civic engagement, because election have consequences. I know that you can ask those 60% Latino males who voted for this current administration. They know about that now. Ask the people in Los Angeles. Ask the people in New York.
Right, we're going to get into that in just a moment.
Ask them.
And one more thing here before we let you go, Jarvis. And again, we're speaking with Jarvis El-Amin, who's one of the plaintiffs in this lawsuit that was taking place in Tampa this week at the federal courthouse with the ACLU of Florida, challenging a state senate, the composition of a drawing, frankly, of a just Senate District 16, which is one that's is partly in St. Petersburg and then crosses Tampa Bay into Hillsborough County. One of the things is that, it's interesting to me, there was a lot of different things going on that was interesting, is that now, again, the plaintiffs are alleging that race was too much of a factor, but race basically in composing these districts has to be part of this, right? Because part of the Fair District Amendments, it's what they call a Tier 1. And in Tier 1, it says, there's three things it says in Tier 1. A prohibition against drawing a plan or district with the intent to favor or disfavor a political party or an incumbent. Also, a prohibition against drawing districts with the intent or result of denying or abridging the equal opportunity of racial or language minorities to participate in the political process or to diminish their ability to elect representatives of their choice. And then districts should consist of contiguous territory. There's also Tier 2, but Tier 1 is superior, if you will, when they have to make that choice. So race was always going to be part of, and composing these districts. So it's a very fine line. I know it's very interesting, very fascinating.
We're threading the needle on that, Mitch.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is the Voting Rights Act of 1965, equal protection.
Yeah.
We can't have an opportunity where we cannot elect a representative that represent us.
Right.
And so that race does have to be considered from that for historical wrongs that has been done to us when voter suppression and our 1965 Voting Rights Act of 1965. So it does, but it cannot be done as packing.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That race could have been represented in 18 without packing.
Right.
in
Cracking
16.
and packing, they call it.
Cracking. I love it.
Indeed. I think we're going to leave it there. So,
All right.
Actually, before you leave, Jarvis, let me get here and see at the computer. Somebody's asking me, text a question in to you.
That's no problem.
And I want to open up, by the way, tell our phone listeners, we're going to talk about immigration just a couple minutes here. And if you want to get in part of that conversation, the phone number to call in is 813-239-9663. You can also send us an email at dj@wmnf.org. And let's see, this question is, I have to get up close here. Okay, Jarvis, these are a political question. We're not, I don't know. We'll wait for that
We'll wait for that one a little later.
Yeah. Okay,
but I'll be listening myself.
Okay, Jarvis, we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for coming in the studio
And
this
thank you,
morning.
Mitch. Anytime, call me, Mitch. I want to come back for the barbershop conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know you were back on the radio. I love you when you're on the radio.
Great to see
you.
you,
was on
Jarvis.
TV, radio, everything.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much.
You too.
Okay, great. So, Ray, we're going to segue now, and we're going to talk about, like you said at the beginning of the show, about immigration. Of course, it's been in the news if you're following the news, which I know our listeners do forever. Okay, it's never gone away. Donald Trump certainly was a huge issue last year in the presidential campaign. Was the unprecedented numbers of people who came across the border the last few years under the Joe Biden administration. People basically say immigration, inflation, the two biggest issues for Donald Trump. So Donald Trump said he was going to come in, and he definitely said, there was going to be mass deportations. Initially, people thought maybe it would only be people with criminal records, and obviously it's gone well beyond that now. So let's talk about that. And we've got several guests that were joining us via Zoom here. And let's see, I'm going to bring this down here. So I do believe we've got on the line right now, we've got Melissa Beaudoin, who's the professor at Liberty University and a member of the Florida Federation of Republican Women Executive Board. Melissa, are you with us?
I am. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you on with us. And we also have Tomas Kennedy, who we've had on the program before out of Miami. Of course, he is a former member of the Democratic National Committee, and he resides down there in Florida, works with the Florida Immigrant Coalition. Good morning, Tomas.
Hey, how are you guys?
Great to have you here. And do we have Anna yet? No, okay. So we're hopefully going to have some other representative here. So thank you for joining us, Melissa and Tomas. We may get another guest to come in here with us. So let's talk about what's going on in Florida. We all know, we've seen the news nationally, what's happening in Los Angeles, obviously the big protest and all that's happening there, which originated because of an ICE raid down there last Friday, I believe it was. But look, we've had raids here in Florida, okay? We had Operation Tidal Wave that took place between April 21st and April 28th, where deputized law enforcement agencies helped with ICE arrest 1,120 immigrants at that time. On April 28th, the Department of Homeland Security described the operation as not only a first-of-its-kind partnership, but a preview of what's to come around the country. That is, of course, having local law enforcement working with the feds. You might remember that Ron DeSantis back in January called for a special session of the legislature. It ultimately did happen in early February, where we passed laws here to make, all 67 sheriffs basically are now ready and can be involved with arresting undocumented immigrants. That's never happened before. Now, by the way, that law is on hold right now. A federal court has been ruling on that in South Florida, but nevertheless, the feds can still do what they're doing, and they certainly have done that. In fact, what was it, May 29th, just a few weeks ago, up in Tallahassee, 100 people were detained by ICE at a construction site near Florida State University. Now, interestingly, the Tallahassee Democrat reported last week that a week after that detention, that raid, federal authorities still hadn't said anything about the raid, including why they targeted that particular site. They have not answered the questions: who was the warrant for? What was the probable cause of the warrant? How many people were detained? And where were they taken? So obviously a lot of concerns about how these things are being played out. Melissa, let me go to you first. I know you support the president. I think you support Ron DeSantis' stance on this. In terms of what's going on here so far, are you good with how everything's rolled out so far? Do you think there's been any excesses at all by ICE here?
Am I good with what's been going on? Yes, I am. And here's why. President Trump is the return of common sense. If you look at what necessitates a country, you have to have clear, definable, and defendable borders. And the travesty that happened under the Biden administration, there is a net of 7.3 million people between 21 and 24 that we don't know where they are, but they're in our country. Are they here for malicious intents? Are they here to have a better life? You know what? We just don't know. While the United States should be welcoming immigrants, they need to be legal, and we need to know that they're here to have a better life. As a matter of fact, I just was on the Customs and Border Patrol statistics, and did you know that in 22 to 24, the number of known terrorist actors, the apprehensions were 67, 80, and 52. Since Trump has taken over, now it's 187. Do you think that the rate of terrorists that come across our border have decreased? Where did they go under Biden, and why didn't Biden catch them? So do I support what's going on? Yes, for the very sake of security, so we don't have another Laken Riley or any of the many women and children that have been victimized by this terrible wave of crime. Yes, I support what's going on.
Before I go to Tomas, I think we have Anna Lamb has joined us. Anna, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, thank you, Anna. So we want to introduce Anna. She is, of course, a dedicated activist for Hispanic immigrant rights. She was born in Mexico and immigrated to the U.S. in 1995, and since then she's worked with various nonprofit organizations and served as a voice for underrepresented Hispanic families. Anna, you just got into just started the conversation. We just heard from Melissa Beaudoin, who supports what's been going on here with these raids. I know you work a lot with Hispanic families and the like. And can you tell me, I mean, I know there's a lot of concern out there in the community. What have you heard from folks in the community?
Well, unfortunately, our community is terrorized right now. That's not easy to be Hispanic, to be undocumented right now. There is no peace among our community because, all the anxiety and the fear of what is going on, because even though they say they are after criminals, that is not true. That is not true. That we're feeling, we're seeing, and our families are being torn apart because of this rhetoric that we have, and not only since the beginning of the year, that this has been since 2015, 2016, when we have the first administration, and it's an ongoing, problem that we have in the community. A lot of people misinforming our community, saying that we have criminals. Of course, any nationality, any group have criminals, but what is happening today is historic and it's unacceptable.
Tomas, when we go to you, I think that and I've seen some, I want to get into the polling in a moment here. There is support. It's very close, actually. You look at some of these polls about what Donald Trump is doing. There's definitely support for getting, as Anna just mentioned, criminals out of the country here. It's a little less strong when it's for folks who've lived in these communities for years, if not decades. and I'm going to get into specifically what's happening actually with some of your lawmakers down there in South Florida, but your overall take about what's gone on here in Florida over the last few months.
Yeah. I mean, historically, polling on this issue shows that, the American people support border enforcement, different degrees of border enforcement, but they, really dislike interior of the country enforcement, basically the promise of mass deportations. And you see it reflected on all these interviews that are happening every day across the country here in Florida, certainly of former Trump supporters, small business owners, people from Venezuela, Cuba, that are either having their employees deported, detained, their livelihoods disrupted, their loved ones status revoked, their loved ones detained, deported. And people are saying, "Oh, I thought Trump was going to go after the criminals. I didn't think he was going to go after, my loved one or my neighbor or the people that work for me." You see it every day in the enforcement, right? I mean, that Tallahassee raid where they went after workers at a construction site on a Thursday at 9 a.m. under the hot Florida sun and just arbitrarily lined people up in two lines and checked immigration status of everyone on board at the site.
Right.
I mean, this week, there was an incident where a Coast Guard boat with FIFA officials and the Miami-Dade mayor was raided by the Coast Guard and Border Patrol, and they checked status of everyone on board that was staff of the boat and catering the party. You're seeing people that are trying to go to their court hearings, doing what's required of them by the U.S. government to have the hope of one day adjusting their status, and they're being basically stalked by immigration enforcement agents at the court sites. So, and by definition, despite what Kristi Noem is saying, this is not going after people who were not vetted. By definition, these people are being vetted. They're literally showing up to their immigration court hearings. Even Donald Trump himself seems to be, I guess he's uncomfortable about what's happening.
Yeah, I had a question about that for Melissa, to Thomas's point. We talk about the so-called 7.3 million immigrants that are unaccounted for. There are some being picked up in courtrooms. They are the most accounted for in that case. Are you okay with what's happening in those courtrooms as well?
The fundamental question that you're asking me is, are we a nation of laws? When people enter this country or they're born here, we're obligated to abide by the laws of this country. We have a constitution, we have laws, we have statutes. So the immigration community, the immigrant community, come legally. You cannot come in here. It's not right to come in here illegally and then try to use the law for your side, apply it equally to all. So if why did they come here? To have a better life? Most of them, not all of them. There are some with malicious intent, as I just showed you with some statistics. But if you're here without malicious intent, go to those hearings, get your status changed. But that can't change the fact pattern that the entry was not done by legal means. And are we a country of laws or are we not? If we're not, get ready for anarchy, guys. Get ready for living under the thumb of gangs and the traffickers. But if we're a country of laws and you abide by the laws, walk in the sunshine, live your life, live in peace. So we have to ask the right question. And the fundamental question is, are we a country that is built upon the Constitution and the rule of law? And I assert, yes, we are.
If you're just tuning in right now, you're listening to Skinny here on WMNF. It's 11:34 a.m. I'm Mitch Perry with Ray Rowe. We're talking about immigration, what's going on around the country, and specifically here in Florida with some of these ICE raids going on. A moment ago, Tomas mentioned about Donald Trump making comments. I want to go to that. In fact, I want to go back to you, Melissa Bedouin from Liberty University. I'm reading my New York Post here, and the story is about Donald Trump yesterday. He put a post out on Truth Social He acknowledged his deportation campaign is hurting key sectors of the American economy, including farming and hospitality. He wrote, "Our great farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business have been stating that our very aggressive policy on immigration is taking very good, long-time workers away from them, with those jobs being almost impossible to replace." He added that many migrants who crossed in the U.S. under his predecessor, Joe Biden, are now seeking those same jobs. He said, "We must protect our farmers, but get the criminals out of the U.S. Changes are coming." And then later in the day, he spoke to some reporters at the White House, and he said, quote, let's see, he said, "Our farmers are being hurt badly by, they have very good workers. They've worked for them for 20 years. He went on to say, "They're not citizens, but they've turned out to be, great. And we're going to have to do something about that." He says, "We can't take farmers and take all their people and send them back because they don't have maybe what they're not supposed to have, maybe not. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What is happening?" And then Trump went on to say, quote, "And then you're supposed to throw them out, and what happens. They end up hiring the people, the criminals that have come in, the murderers from prisons and everything else." He says, "We're going to have an order on that pretty soon. We're going to have to use a lot of common sense on that." Melissa, what do you make of Trump's comments on that, talking about how people are concerned about this could affect the economy, which is why traditionally a lot of Republicans, a lot of what some people would call Wall Street Journal Republicans, have never wanted to go this far when you go cracking down on illegal immigration?
That's a big question. I'll try to narrow it down. So if we look at the big picture as far as immigration across time, according to the United Nations, the human actors have been about 3% of the total population is migratory at any one time. In 2024, that rate, it's been going up since 2000, but it was 3.7% of the human population. You think, well, what's, a little bit more than 0.5%? Well, that's over 305 million people. That's almost the entire population of the United States. So it's not just a United States problem. It's a global problem. The world is becoming more mobile. But for the United States, because it's our country, here's the truth of the matter. And I just published an article with a coworker. And by the way, I'm speaking for myself, not anybody else on that. Though where I work, I honor them and I love them. I'm speaking only for myself. And that is that the United States birth rate per woman has reduced down to 1.6 as of 2024. We are at a level of birth rates where we cannot sustain our population. We need the immigrant population to get us back up to that 2.1, 2.2. And that's just to sustain, not to grow a population. So do we need the immigrants? Yes, we have to have, as President Trump said, common sense laws. It's going to take time to write bad policies, to get those immigrants that they came illegally, to get them legal, to sort out the ones who came for, I just want to live in peace and have a good life, versus the ones that came with malicious intent. We need to it's going to take time to sort those out. And we need to give the Trump administration time to right that ship.
Okay. Yeah, I want to go. I'm sorry, Ray, do you want to ask a question?
No, as you're teeing up these questions, Mitch, Tomas, I'm wondering, we talk about the rule of law and constitutional rights. In your conversations with immigrants who are obviously scared right now, how are you talking about due process and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I have to also respond to some of the other things that were said. This notion that why are these people in that are getting detained at these courthouse hearings just not get legal? It's quite complicated for people to adjust their status and find their path to citizenship. Family petition alone can take 20, 30 years, if not more. It's just not such a simple process, and we haven't had a federal immigration package with a pathway to citizenship since 1986, since Ronald Reagan was president. You know what I mean? So we are pretty much governed by an immigration framework that was designed before the internet was a widely available thing. So, until Congress updates this framework, provides a pathway to citizenship, what you're saying is just not going to happen. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Again, if you're just tuning in, we're speaking about immigration. It's a skinny here on 88.5 FM Ray Row. I'm Mitch Perry here. We've got our guests here, and we're going to some of your phone calls right now. Again, you want to make a comment here or ask a question, 813-239-9663. Let's see, we've got a call from Jacksonville, but I don't think we have a name here. Hello, you're on the air from Jacksonville.
No, this is John from Port Richey. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I don't know what happened here. Okay, John, thank you for calling. What's your question?
So I got a couple of things. One, I want to piggyback off the last show and say that, I think there is a difference between truth and the news. And when I listen to the conservative media that passes themselves off as news, I hear things all the time that they're saying that is untruthful, like these people are illegal aliens. And that really kind of bothers me because it's my understanding that coming across the border at a point that's not a legal point of entry is a civil offense. It is not a criminal offense. And as your guest, Melissa, I think her name is, says that we're a nation of laws. Well, we have laws not only within our country, but international laws that say once you reach this country and step foot in this country, you can claim asylum, and now you're here legally. So something that always bothers me is that when I hear people keep saying illegal aliens, I want to ask them, how are they illegal? I would like to ask your guest to please point out the criminal law, this criminal statute that these people broke that made them illegal. Now, if you can't do that, please stop calling them illegal and start calling them for what they are. They're undocumented people here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, John. Do you want to respond to that, Melissa Beaudoin?
I can provide a little bit of insight. So international law for claiming asylum, if you are from Mexico coming north, United States is the next country contiguous north. That is, if the asylum claim is legitimate, that is a valid point. If they're coming from Panama, Nicaragua, any of those other states, when you have to cross over other states, that does not apply. According to international law, it has to be the next state over. I just wanted to just provide some clarification on that. I'll let the other folks respond further.
Yeah, I want to go to Anna Lamb there. Anna, and what part of the state are you in, actually? I didn't know. Clarify that.
I'm in the Tampa Bay.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I've seen you over the years here. Okay, so what have you heard? I think there was a story in the Tampa Bay Times just today, actually, about a longtime immigrant who was, I think was some religious official who was recently detained. We are hearing about people, again, who've been here for years, if not decades, who are being swept up here as part of what, again, with the president and Tom Homan from ICE has, promised to be mass deportations here. What are you familiar with? I think this case was actually talked about on NPR and it's written about in the Tampa Bay Times. I don't know if you know that specific case, but again, here in Tampa Bay, are you learning about folks who are now detained, who no longer with their family right now?
Yes, in fact, every day I receive calls, from people who are being arrested, from family members. People are calling me from detention centers too, trying to figure out how to manage this, how to navigate this, because they are being decades in this country. We understand, that we have laws, but definitely the information we're getting every single day is outrageous. You don't even know where to start. We understand this is a country of law. We understand that. But at this moment, there is no law in place right now that allows most undocumented individuals to get in line or apply for a legal status. That is not happening. I mean, it's easy to say. That's what we hear from a lot of people. But there is no such, process that we can have. And that's also a confusion for the undocumented community. And for this reason, a lot of our people are being victims of fraud, because people outside, notaries and some lawyers are, doing process saying, oh, here is a solution. And they are submitting asylums, frivolous asylums, and this is putting us in danger of people. And people is taking advantage of all this mess for those people that they don't know what, is the legal path, because it's not existing right now. There is nothing there. So most undocumented immigrants, they don't have the knowledge of how to get it, all this in place, all these, when they are saying, oh yeah, come and do it the right way. What is the right way? We don't have it. We don't have, any law in place. So that's why we have to recognize that there is a flaw in our laws and we need to fix it. And that's where we are not focusing.
Right. You can get congressional action there. In fact, I think that's maybe what our caller wants to talk about. Let's go back to the phones here. We've got, I think this caller is maybe from Jacksonville. I don't know. Bill, is this you here on WMNF?
Hi, Tampa Bay. This is Bill in Jacksonville. I'm currently in West Palm, waiting tomorrow's No King rally. And I encourage everyone to go out and attend peacefully. Anyway, I just want everybody to remember that we've had a very comprehensive bipartisan border deal that was shot down by Republicans at the demand of Donald Trump himself. This is a crisis that he is trying to create. It's not. And it's always been his plan to do that. He's made it clear. He said before he was elected he wants to be a dictator, and that's his path. He said it from the very beginning.
Bill, let me ask you. I'm sorry.
Comprehensive bill. Yeah,
if I could ask you a question, Bill. Yeah, and I know, and we've heard that from.
Great job, Mitch.
Well, I
just want your shows.
Oh, well, thank you.
Stay with us here, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, I just want to ask you because I know that the border, that bill that was, I think, Oklahoma Senator James Langford, Republican, he was the main guy behind that. Was
of all people.
Well, right, and did get shut down. And I know that Democrats. I mean, going back a year ago, we had a debate with congressional candidates in Pinellas County last year, and that was the issue, and that was the issue Biden and Kamala Harris talked about. And some people thought though it was kind of late in the process of the Biden administration that they were getting behind that in the after there had been. Again, I do mention this because I just the fact that there were actually, it has been like maybe some people say again why Joe Biden or the Kamala Harris, they were really hurt last year in terms of like.
I don't think we can put that on them. Because the Republicans fought to never let it get to that point, to really get it going, to get the momentum behind it. So I can't really put that on just the Biden administration.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was the president, though. I mean, yeah. But you're right.
Yeah.
Congress, right.
And for him to call up and demand that they not vote for it when all of them were ready to, then there you go. And he has created this problem, and this has been his plan, and he plans to escalate it. So go out, protest peacefully. Do not give him a reason. But I'm going to cut it short and just remind everybody about that comprehensive bipartisan border bill. Have a great show.
Thank you, Bill. I want to talk about. I do want to bring the politics of this up, Ray, because again, I think that it was an issue and is an issue for Democrats. I think that in how they handle this, and we've got some recent polls last week. CBS News came out. 54% told CBS News and YouGov they approve of the administration's deportation efforts. A little over 40% said they think Trump's crackdown is making America safer. But let's see here. We also have over the last day or so, a Reuters Ipsos poll of 1,100 Americans has 52 response. So it's not huge, but it's more plus. 52% nationwide, including 1 in 5 Democrats and 9 in 10 Republicans, backed ramping up deportations of people in the country illegally. Still, 49% of people in the poll said Trump had gone too far with his arrest of immigrants, compared to 40% who said he had not. Also, we should say that this is not going to, I don't see this, and I want to get our guests in a minute on their thoughts about this, but this is not going to, I don't think, you could have these big protests tomorrow. I know they're going to happen around the country. Get slowed down. And this new bill, reconciliation bill, the big, beautiful bill, in that there's $185 billion for immigration enforcement, including $27 billion more for ICE operations such as raids. That's an increase of about $150 billion over the current levels for immigration enforcement. So we go to Tomas for that right now. This is what I want to bring up, Tomas, because you're down there in Miami, and I want to bring up a couple of your legislators down there. How about Elena Garcia? So she, of course, is the co-founder of Latinas for Trump. And yet she released a statement last weekend where she said, quote, "This is not what we voted for. I've always supported Trump. However, this is unacceptable and inhumane," talking about the recent raids. "I understand the importance of deporting criminal aliens, but what we are witnessing are arbitrary measures to hunt down people who are complying with their immigration hearings, many cases with credible fear of persecution claims, all driven by a Miller-like," referring to Stephen Miller-like, "desire to satisfy a self-fabricated deportation goal. This undermines a sense of fairness and justice that the American people value." And then also Maria Elvira Salazar, congresswoman down there in South Florida, she said she was, quote, "heartbroken about the uncertainty now gripping Florida's 27th district because of the recent immigration actions of the administration." She went on to say that anyone with a pending asylum case or similar claims deserves to go through the process, adding that it's undisputable that those who fled Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua were leaving brutal regimes. And of course, she was supposed to meet this week with Kristi Noem from Homeland Security. So, Tomas, what do you make of some of these Florida Republicans, what they're saying in the last couple of weeks here?
I mean, their constituents are being attacked nonstop by this administration. I think it's a lot of it is politically driven. They're worried about what's going to happen in the midterms. They're worried about what's going to happen when they run for office, either for re-election or for another seat. And then, I think some of it also is probably genuine concern coupled with that political self-interest, right? I mean, they are seeing people in their community stripped of status, detained, deported every single day. And as previously established, these are not predominantly criminals that are being stopped. It's people at work sites. It's people that are showing up to their court hearings. I mean, we've had that report a couple of weeks ago that Stephen Miller was yelling at people in the Oval Office, at DHS officials, telling them to ramp up deportations and to, go to 7-Elevens and Home Depot and pick up people working if they have to. So it really is just about deporting massive amounts of people, as many people as possible. And the other thing I ask is, Melissa was talking about, we have to, deport people. We have to get the people who are here illegally out of the country. We do have millions of people who are here, without authorization illegally, 12 million by some estimates. And a lot of them didn't come during the Biden years. They've been here for decades. They have well-established lives, families, I'm not just trying to make it purely a humanitarian concern here. I mean, this would be really, really disruptive to our economy if we were to mass deport all of those people. So, is that the plan? Do we really want to mass deport 12 million people? Like, I'm just curious if that is like the ultimate end goal.
That is interesting. Yeah, Melissa, you were just and again, let me just check everybody here. It's 11:52. You're listening to WMNF 88.5. Mitch Perry with Ray Rowe. We're talking immigration. You just heard Tomas Kennedy from down there in Miami, Florida Immigrant Coalition. We've also got Anna Lamb here, a representative of the Hispanic community living in Tampa Bay, and Melissa Beaudoin, who is a professor at Liberty University, also a member of the Florida Federation of Republican Women on the executive board. Melissa, I'm going to go back to, well, you can respond to Tomas there, but also I wanted to ask, we heard about the bill, the Langford bill, right, that came up last year that was thwarted, that didn't happen, that was somewhat of a move at comprehensive immigration reform. At some point, we do need Congress to do something here, don't we?
Yes. And I think, to be intellectually honest, both parties can be held accountable for not coming up with a feasible path forward for those who come in good faith to have a path towards legal citizenship. Absolutely. And I just want to pivot because I think our time's almost done. When I see, as an American, these demonstrations where they're burning the American flag and holding up a flag of another state in the international system, it hurts. It hurts me as an American to say, you came here to have a better life, but you are dishonoring the country that is hosting you. And I want to go back to this concept of e pluribus unum. And Teddy Roosevelt in 1919 said, in the first place, we should insist that the immigrant who comes here in good faith becomes an American and assimilates himself to us. He shall be treated on exact equality with everyone else. for it is an outrage to discriminate against any such man because of creed or birthplace or origin. But this is predicated on the man becoming, in very fact, an American and nothing but an American. So I'm just going to leave you with that thought.
Great. We got a couple more calls here. Also, somebody wrote in, MJ wrote in, says, does anybody know what the plans are for DACA people? Are they being protected? Anna, let's go to you on that. We haven't heard much about DACA at all, obviously, and that's been, any thoughts there?
Yeah, they are very nervous.
Yeah.
No doubt, because we have to remember these are kids that were brought to this country without decision. They only know this country, and they really need support because they are being, having this country as their own country. And this is something that we need to support and find a way for them to be able to stay in this country.
Yeah, that is something that has not moved for a while there. We were years ago, they were going to formally after Obama did that, of course, executive order wise. It's been up in the courts a lot. Okay, we've got some callers here. A couple of people don't want to give their name out here. We want to go Bob because Bob is going to give us his name right now.
We'd like you to go ahead and say your name if you could.
Okay, Bob, you're on the air.
Yeah, just a couple of statements. And I'm not going contrary to anybody. I don't mean that. I think everybody's got the right. But if I missed a court appearance and I got pulled over for driving without a license, I would be arrested. And these people that come here, like I'm listening to these people call in and you're talking, they've been here for decades. Well, they've had time to become a United States citizen. Why didn't they go through the process by now? Because they didn't have to, because they were sliding. And 90% of them, and I know this for a fact, work for cash. So they're not paying any taxes. And it's a sad thing. We got to get these people to bow up to the way we run our country. These are our laws. If you don't like it, go home.
Okay, Bob, thank you for the call. One more call here. We're running out of time here. Nanette from Tampa, you are on The Skinny.
Hi, I'm Nanette Daly. I live in Tampa, Florida, and this is a very personal situation to me. I was married to an immigrant. He died 2 years ago. He was deported to Guatemala about 20 years ago, and I've been fighting forever. I have a daughter. It's a very complicated story, but these people that say it's an easy process, it is not. I went through it when we were very young. It was difficult then, and it's 100 times more now. Basically, you have to be rich. I have found years ago, I found stories of people that can invest $250,000 in a business in the U.S. You can have a green card in 2 weeks. If you're poor, you're not welcome. And I see what they do to people. I help people. I feed homeless people. I volunteer in the community. This is truly disturbing to me. People have no idea what this process is. What's happening is wrong. Basically, you have to be rich.
Thank you, Nanette, for the phone call. I think last word, we've only got about a minute and a half left with our guests. Starting with you, Tomas, your thoughts about this as we move forward here.
No, I just could not agree more with the last caller. It is not an easy process. I went through it myself, so I know from life experience. People are just unaware or ignorant or just uneducated about how complex adjustment of status can be and how little recourse and avenues people have to resort to that. And again, the last pathway to citizenship happened in 1986. We have millions of people in this country that have been living here without papers or under some precarious immigration status like TPS, and it's being revoked. And we are actually growing the undocumented population very quickly in this country, and I think the policies of this administration have been extremely chaotic, and they're not conducive towards productive conversation on this. I don't think we're going to have a pathway to citizenship or immigration reform in the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Tomas. Quickly, Melissa, your last thoughts.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Anna Lamb, any last comments here before we go?
Just to say that morally and socially, mass deportation policies send message of fears, not justice. And they punish people who had built lives here, and often with no path to legal status. Despite following the law in every other way, deportation is not just about borders, it's about human lives.
Okay, that's going to be it, Ray.
Thank you, Anna Lamb. Thank you so much, Dr. Melissa Badouan from Liberty University, Thomas Kennedy from the Florida Immigrant Coalition, and at the top of our show, Jarvis El-Amin, the plaintiff in a gerrymandering case which just wrapped. Judgment probably not coming until the fall. On behalf of myself, Ray Roa, Mitch Perry, Skip Sassy on the boards today, and all good wishes to Irene, who was not answering the phones for us today. Thank you so much for listening to WMNF Tampa. Joellen Schilke, the hostess who loves you the mostest, is in Studio One, ready with art in your ear to transition you into the next block of this fantastic public affairs programming, which we thank you so much that you've supported. Hope you have a great weekend. Keep listening to WMNF Tampa, and take care of yourselves.